You already know what time it is. It's your player partner, Mack B, back in the building, back at it. Episode 50. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Hit that subscribe button. We appreciate the love. Hit the like button. We welcome all the comments. Thank you for the support. Episode 50, we got a lot to cover. I'm in the building. I got Solomon in the building. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great, man. How are you?
Hey, man, too blessed to be stressed, right? We're going to dive right in, and we're going to land in Kansas City with the Chiefs. Always playing around with people's, pulses. I mean, everything going down to the wire. If you got a heart condition, I recommend you don't watch too many of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid this year because they're living on the edge, right? They've won 15 consecutive games by one score or less. And that includes playoffs, the Super Bowl last year, games going back to the regular season last year and this year. So Kansas City is on a roll. They're 12-1. They've officially locked up their 9th consecutive AFC West crown. So shout out to Kansas City, Andy Reid, Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, Pacheco. Hopkins is in the mix now. I can't wait to see what happens when Hollywood Brown comes back in a few weeks. But many people are like, well, is Kansas City being lucky, or is they legitimately a threat to potentially three-peat and do something that no team has ever done? I'm going to give my take on this real quick. I think that Kansas City is a quality football team, a well-run organization. They know how to run a football team, right? Shout out to the Hunt family and all the ways of winning that they've shown us over the years, right? So Kansas City is viable. I think they have just as good as a chance as anybody to win the Super Bowl. But I am concerned with the offensive line. Patrick Mahomes is getting beat up like a redheaded stepchild, right? So they need to fix that on the offensive line. Defensively on the back end, Kansas City's been solid. Not as strong as they were last year during their run. However, they're a bend but don't break kind of defense. They can still get it done with the best of them. But when you got Patrick Mahomes, I say this all the time, I'm going to say it again, rinse and repeat, right? When you got Patrick Mahomes with the ball and the game's on the line, I wouldn't want any other quarterback in the National Football League. So he's got the playoff pedigree. He's got the big game experience. I trust him in big game moments. I trust Andy Reid with his in-game adjustments. So Kansas City's on a roll. Again, they won the division for the 9th consecutive year. They're 12-1. And all they got to do, they got 4 games left. If they go 2-2 and they win 2 out of the last 4, I think they're going to win 3 out of the last 4. But let's say they go 2-2. They lock up home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. The road to New Orleans is going to have to go through Kansas City. So I really think the Chiefs are viable here. The only thing I will say in terms of luck, that last game where they squeaked out a win against the Chargers at the end, and yes, it was only a 30-yard field goal, but it did hit the upright and go in. That was a little bit of luck there. But all the other games they won, even when they let Carolina come back in the fourth quarter, the Broncos had them on the ropes and potentially were going to kick the game-winning field goal. The field goal was blocked, but let's say the field goal wasn't blocked. How do we know it would have went in? We don't know, right? It doesn't matter now because Kansas City made the play of the game. But with that being said, I think the Chiefs are definitely a quality opponent. I think they can beat anybody in the NFL. I am concerned with their lack of productivity on offense, so they need to step up their game a little bit and get some more action in the end zone. But I think their offense is getting better. I think Patrick Mahomes is stretching the field better now than he was earlier in the year. And I think Kansas City is a threat to not only win the AFC, but to go down to New Orleans, where the Saints ain't going to be marching in because they're out of it, and go down there and capture their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl title. Never been done in the history of the National Football League, but things will always meant to be happen at some point in time. Solomon, my question to you is, do you think the Chiefs right now at 12-1, the way they've been winning, 15 consecutive wins by 1 score or less, do you think it's a little bit of luck? Or do you think they got the skill set and they legitimately are deserving of winning all these close games.
Well, they definitely have the skill set. I think, no one's going to dispute that. But
Right.
what I think their issue is right now is they play down to their opponent. And it
point.
almost seems like they need some kind of, kick in the pants to get the offense going. And as you've seen quite a few times this year, they've won these games, at the last minute, just really squeaking by. And so you're right. They've been lucky because, especially with that field goal that hit the uprights, that almost always pops out. Anytime you've seen that this year, it's come out. And for that to go in at the last minute, last play, that's just typical Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes luck. But, I feel like they'll get it together come playoff time.
Yeah.
They'll start to play more consistently, play up to their level rather than down to their opponent's level. I still think there are teams that can compete with them and can possibly beat them. But I think you're going to get to that, right?
Right. And speaking of that, let's look at some of the teams that are in contention right now, in the AFC. You've got the Steelers, you've got the Bills, you've got the Ravens, and you got the Broncos, right? So with that being said, in my opinion, I think the biggest threat to the Chiefs is going to be the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to tell you why.
Boy.
First of all, they play in the same division, okay? Denver matches up very well against Kansas City. And trust me, they got to play each other one more time, the last game of the season. Kansas City may not even need to win that game, so who knows who they're going to suit up and put on the field. But that first game in Kansas City, Denver heavily outplayed the Chiefs. The Broncos definitely, I thought, were worthy of the dub. They didn't get the win, but nonetheless, their defense is something to be reckoned with. They're 9th overall in the league in total defense. They can rush the passer. They lead the NFL in sacks with 47. The Broncos are a dangerous team, and I think they're clicking and gelling at the right time. So many people watching the show, tap in. I want to hear the comments. Go ahead and sip the haterade if you don't agree with me. It's all good. But I think the Broncos pose the biggest threat to Kansas City because they have a level of familiarity with the Chiefs. They play in the same division. They play the Chiefs twice a year. Bo Nix is definitely emerging and right in front of our very eyes. He's a Rookie of the Year candidate. I think that Sean Payton has made the adjustments. They're stretching the field with Cortland Sutton. The rookie Vele is doing some things and making some big plays as well. The running game is going. But the defense, I think, will cause some issues for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I think out of all of those teams, taking nothing away from the Steelers and the Ravens, okay, or the Bills, I think Denver poses the biggest threat to Kansas City. My number 2 pick in that list would be Buffalo. But watch out for the Broncos. They're going to get into the playoffs, in my opinion, as a wild card. And they may even mess around and get a home game. You never know. What are your thoughts in terms of who poses the biggest threat to Kansas City out of those 4 teams?
Well, you can't deny the Bills are the biggest threat, I think, just because
The most talented.
Yeah, well, they just play consistently well too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always in every game. They don't get blown out, and their quarterback has just proven not only to be
He's the MVP.
yeah, just to start running at throwing the ball, but just getting first downs, doing whatever he has to do to get his team across the line. So you can't deny that. Now, my other pick would be Pittsburgh, just because I feel like they're the team that you just don't know what could happen on any given week. I mean, they've got a solid quarterback. Everybody, was up, just really crazy about when they brought in Russell Wilson, replacing, a quarterback who was already playing well. But he's proven that he's the number 1 guy, and they've backed him. And that team is doing really well. And I think on any given week, they could beat anybody. That would be the team that if somebody were to surprise somebody, it would be Pittsburgh.
Okay. Shout out to Mike Tomlin. He's only won. He has a winning record in 17 consecutive
There
seasons.
you go.
It's about to be 18 because, they're 10-3, so they're not going to finish with a losing record. So Mike Tomlin, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL. Salute to you, champ. You just clearly know what the hell you're doing. So I'm never going to question Mike Tomlin again because he knows what he's doing. Shout out to Russell Wilson. Redemption. I'm going to call him Redemption Wilson because he definitely has proven a lot of people wrong who wrote him off. I didn't write him off. I did think his skill set was declining, but obviously I was wrong in that regard, and Russell Wilson is doing his thing. But we shall see what happens. It will be interesting. Imagine the Broncos and the Steelers meeting up in the playoffs. That would be something. That talk about a movie, right? That would be interesting. Russ going up against his former team with all the drama that went down in D-Town last year. I still think they ran him out of town and didn't do him right, but it's all good. He definitely is doing what he's doing in Pittsburgh. So shout out to Steelers and all the teams that are going into the postseason. Watch out for the Broncos, y'all. I'm just saying. We are going to move on, and we're going to head to the Twin Cities and go to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Shout out to the Vikings. They're 11-2 on the year. Sam Darnold has been balling, getting it done behind center. You know, it's funny how a former Jet quarterback, we've been down this road before. You know, they ran him out of town in New York. Nobody thought that Sam Darnold could play. I remember there was a specific episode where he was on the field and said he was seeing ghosts. I think he got his bell rung or something happened, but yeah, it wasn't the ghost of Christmas past. We know that. But Sam Darnold is in Minnesota now, and he's been playing lights out. I mean, he definitely is in the MVP conversation. I still think Josh Allen's going to win it, but you got to give some love to Sam Darnold. Nobody saw this coming. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe most improved.
Yeah, definitely most improved. I mean, 3,300 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 picks. His QBR is 59. Sam Darnold's been getting it done. So the Vikings have been balling. They've got a great 1-2 punch with Jefferson and Addison. You know, those guys have been lighting up the league, stretching the field, making big plays. So I love what they're doing in Minnesota with the Vikings. I think, coaching-wise, they're very well run. They're organizationally run well. And I think they match up well against the Lions and the Packers as well in the NFC. So that division, the NFC North, is one of the better divisions in football. You got 3 out of the 4 teams in the division that are going to make the playoffs. The Bears are in the basement. They're not going to make it. But other than that, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings are all viable threats in the NFC. So I love what Sam Darnold has been doing. Props to him. Props to the Vikings organization. Now, you do have some teams that are a threat to the Vikings. And my question to you, Solomon, before I give my explanation, of course, is who poses the biggest threat? Is it the Eagles? Is it the Vikings or the Packers? In my opinion, out of those 3 teams, I believe that the Eagles are going to be flying high. And I think the Eagles pose the biggest threat to the Vikings because they can run the football. They can mix it up with play action because Jalen Hurts hasn't been really throwing the ball well this year. But I think the Eagles defensively have been making adjustments, and they can run the ball with Saquon Barkley, who definitely is in the MVP conversation as well. I think he's going to break the all-time rushing record. I think he's headed right down that road and making history. So I really like what they're doing with Barkley, how they're utilizing him, despite the fact Jalen Hurts hasn't been really throwing the football well. A.J. Brown is pissed. I'm sure you guys have all heard what's been going down in the city of brotherly love. Ain't no love being shown in that locker room right now, but I understand the Eagles definitely. I think last year when they went 10-1 and then they melted like a stick of parquet margarine, right? And they just folded in the playoffs and got blown out by Tampa Bay in the first round. I think that was a learning experience for the Eagles. I think they're more poised, they're more mature, and I think they will make a run. I think the Lions are definitely viable as well, but I like the Eagles here to pose the biggest threat to the Vikings. Solomon, what is your take on this in terms of who do you think can knock off the Vikings come postseason? Talk
The
to me.
Lions, period. The Lions, period.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
No cap.
yeah, there's really nothing you can say. That team, not only are they doing well this year, they progressed from last year. That's what you like to see in a team. They didn't go and rebuild. They didn't go and change, a bunch of player personnel. They're just consistently playing well. They're leading the division right now. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. But yeah, I think the Lions can do it. I really do. I think this is their year. Green Bay, I just feel like they're just not good enough yet. What were the other couple of teams you said? The Vikings. Yeah, the Vikings.
The Packers, the Lions.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
the
the
Packers and the Eagles. Yeah, I think it's not their year. I think next year. But yeah, definitely the Lions.
Well, that's why they play the game and lace them up, right? So we shall see how it all unfolds. We're going to move on. We're going to go to North Carolina, where the Panthers reside. And despite the fact that the Panthers really don't have the best record in the league, I got to give some props because I called out Bryce Young on this show. He wasn't playing well. He got benched. And Bryce Young, the last 4 weeks, has been balling out. I know Carolina hasn't won any of those games, but the way he's been playing, he's been stepping up in the pocket. He's been, throwing the football in tight windows. He's reading defenses better. And I just see a level of swag. I just see a level of confidence on the field with Bryce Young that he didn't exemplify earlier in the year, right? When Andy Dalton took over for Bryce Young. So props to Bryce Young for coming back, working hard, keeping his head up, not giving up, not quitting, and just being mature and showing some signs of growth. So I really love what he's been doing to elevate his game. You know, he's got 1,572 passing yards. He's got 7 tutties and 7 picks. His QBR is 50.9, but he's been balling out the last 4 weeks. And Carolina has been in every game. I mean, they could have beat Kansas City. They lost that game 30-27. They came all the way back in the fourth quarter. They lost in overtime to a Tampa Bay team, and they were not a favorite in that game. Bryce Young played well. And then they just lost to the Eagles. They had the Eagles on the ropes. And Bryce Young made the play at the end of the game and basically was throwing the winning touchdown pass. The receiver couldn't catch the ball. It basically made contact with the ground. So Carolina ended up with another L. But I think the future's bright in Carolina with Bryce Young. If he can continue to play the way he's playing, show the courage, the leadership under center. I love what he's doing. I love, what's going on with them. Despite the fact they're not winning, I think they're going to get a dub this week, but I'll tap on that later on in the show. But I do like what Bryce Young and the Panthers have been doing. Despite not winning games, they're being very, very competitive and nothing but respect to the Panthers. Moving on, we're going to head to Big D, Dallas, Texas, home of the Cowboys. It's been a dumpster fire in Dallas most of the year. They had a 2-game winning streak until they ran into the Cincinnati Bengals. I told everybody on Monday night that the Bengals would handle business. But Dallas was in that game. They did have their chances. A costly mistake at the end on that block punt, and the guy tries to be the hero. I ain't even going to try to pronounce your name, brother, so I'm going to just say, hey, you know what? Keep your head up. There's better days ahead. But that kind of was reminiscent of the Leon Lett fumble from many, many, many moons before in the past, right? So if you don't know what happened with Leon Lett, Google it or go to YouTube and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, the Cowboys now, mathematically, they're still alive at 5-8. But I don't see Dallas winning the next 4 games. In fact, I think they're going to lose this coming weekend. Again, I'll tap in on that in a few. But the Cowboys, to me, definitely need to make a shakeup. They need to make a change. I can't blame everything on Mike McCarthy, but Jerry Jones, you've got to let go of the rope, Jerry. You got to relinquish some control here. I don't think you're the best general manager for the team. No disrespect. You're a great owner. The valuation of the Cowboys has skyrocketed. When you bought the team, I think they're worth $12 billion now. So props to you, Jerry, for increasing the visibility and the valuation of the Cowboys. But I think you need to take a step back, pump the brakes, give the keys to the car to somebody else, because right now you're not passing that driving test at the DMV. In fact, you need some reading glasses, because I don't know what the hell's going on in Dallas with you, Jerry, but you're criticizing your football team for blocking a punt. That's the most ludicrous thing I ever heard. You are upset with your own football team for making a play at the end. Well, maybe if they didn't block the punt, how do you know they still wouldn't have turned the ball over? We don't know. So they made a play in the game. It was a mistake, a critical mistake made by the Cowboys, giving the ball right back to the Bengals. But I think from an organizational standpoint, Dallas is a mess. I think they need new leadership. I think they need to blow the team up. I think they need to basically just start from scratch. That's my biggest concern in Dallas, is not only coaching. You got a lot of injuries. Dak Prescott obviously is out for the year with a hamstring injury. Cooper Rush hasn't really looked great. Ezekiel Elliott is way too old he's lost several steps. He can't run the football. But the Cowboys do have some good players on defense. I still think you keep Diggs. Micah Parsons, I think you keep him. You've got Overshaw, who had that terrible knee injury. He's going to miss some time. But I think the Cowboys have some key players. But I think offensively, I think they still need another wide receiver. I think CeeDee Lamb can't be the only one trying to get it done. And I think they need a quality running back. And I would even look out for another quarterback. No disrespect to Dak, but how do we know he's going to come back at full strength, on that tear, on that hamstring injury? That could be a lingering injury going into next year. I wish him a speedy recovery, but, the National Football League, quarterback position is something where you got to have a plan because you got to have a quality backup in the event your starter goes down. So I think the Cowboys really need to refocus. I think they need to blow it up. I think they need to start from scratch and make some wholesale changes. I think Mike McCarthy should be gone and start, anew. That's my opinion on the Cowboys. Solomon, what are your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys? Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, they're sitting at 5-8. It's been a disappointing season down in Dallas. They've only won one home game all year. They're 1-6 at home.
You know what's funny? If you ask someone who doesn't know anything about the NFL, what's one of the best teams in the NFL, they probably say Dallas, just because Dallas has done a great job of marketing, right? That team,
the household name.
It's just championship caliber team. And you're right, they have not been for a long time. If you look at the common denominator, it's obviously Jerry Jones. He is a very hands-on guy. And I think as much as we wish that he would take a step back, that's just not his style.
Yeah.
And so I think going in, I think they probably lost out on a lot of good coaches because they understand that they won't really have the control that they'd like to have over personnel, over even calling plays sometimes. I mean, because, Jerry is very public about his opinion on his players, his coaches, and all of that. So it's not a great situation. Some people would liken it to how, Dolan with the Knicks, that kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think at some point they need to sell the team. I mean, I think if he sold the team, that'd probably be the only way that you could get someone to come in and say, okay, look, we're going to hire a very strong GM. We're gonna let him run the program, hire the coaches that we need to hire, get the players we need to get in here, and go from there.
Well, speaking of a fire sale, you clearly hear what's going on, right? So I disagree because Jerry is so passionate about the Cowboys. He wants to win so bad. He's just hustling backwards. He doesn't know what he's doing. And again, that's no disrespect. But, I think, Father Time is catching up with him. I don't think he's going to sell the team because he's got his sons helping to run the organization. So Jerry's going to take the Cowboys to his grave. He's not going to sell that team. There's no way in hell Jerry's going to do something like that. I'm not mad at your opinion regarding what he may want to do, but I don't see it happening. So it's a dumpster fire in Dallas.
And it will continue to be a dumpster fire.
It will continue to burn. Speaking of burning up, though, how about the Rookie of the Year race, right? We got Bo Nix, the Bronco rookie QB, taking the NFL by storm. We got Jayden Daniels, the LSU product, down in the nation's capital in D.C., ballin'. So shout out to both of those guys playing at a high level. This was basically early in the season. Many people saw it as a one-way race, right? A runaway race with Jayden Daniels, who came out the gate really hot, put up some big numbers, had that Hail Mary win against the Bears about 6 weeks ago. But Bo Nix has heated up, and their numbers are eerily similar, right? So Bo Nix for the year has over 2,800 yards, 2,842 yards to be exact, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Jayden Daniels also has 2,800 yards passing. He's got 15 touchdowns. He's got 6 picks, a QBR of 72.9. Bo Nix got a QBR of 56.2. So they're right there neck and neck. It's a tight race. I think that Bo Nix has done more with less. So if you're asking me today, who would be my pick of Rookie of the Year, I'm riding with Bo Nix and the Broncos. I think he's done more with less talent. And no disrespect to the Broncos because they do have a good roster. But I think with all the talent in Washington, that Jayden Daniels has to work with. I think he's got more weapons than what Bo Nix has. But Bo Nix is a hell of an athlete. He can move around, he can scramble, he can make plays on the fly, just like Jayden Daniels can. So I love both of their games. Shout out to both of these rookies. But if I had to vote today, I'm riding with Bo Nix. I like what he's been doing, particularly the last 5 to 6 weeks of the season. He's cut down on the turnovers. He's reading defenses better. He's stretching the field. He's making plays with his legs. And I think the Broncos are a force to be reckoned with for many years to come. They got the right quarterback. Remember, Bo Nix was one of the few quarterbacks drafted in the first round that actually played a full 4 years in college. In fact, he had a redshirt year, so I think he was in college 5 years because he started at Auburn. So shout out to Bo Nix. Keep balling out. Shout out to Jayden Daniels. I think both the Commanders and the Broncos will make the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. And then at that point, it's anybody's game, right? That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Moving on, we're heading back to North Carolina. Bold move here by Bill Belichick, officially interviewed for the coaching vacancy in North Carolina for the Tar Heels. And it looks like Belichick is officially been named the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Surprising me, Solomon, here. I mean, Bill Belichick has always been associated with NFL. I never saw him going to college. I'm not saying it's a mistake. We'll have to see how it plays out. But am I hella surprised? Hell yeah, I am. I didn't see this coming. My biggest thing is his coaching style, his pedigree, his background. Can it resonate in college with these younger guys? The college game has changed, right? There's just through the transfer portal, the NIL situations that are going on. I don't know if Bill Belichick is ready to embrace the younger generation of athletes. The swag, the style, all the changes that have been happening in college football. Can he coach? Hell yeah, he can coach. He's one of the greatest of all time to do it. Multiple Super Bowl championships with the Patriots. I love Bill Belichick and his determination and his passion for winning. So I think it's an interesting hire. It's a sexy hire in North Carolina. He's going to take over that team and see what happens next year. They play in the ACC, so I'm going to be interested to see how they start playing next year, particularly early in the year. But I think Bill Belichick can definitely ruffle some feathers down there in the ACC. I don't think it's a bad hire at all. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can adjust from his coaching style in the NFL to what's going on currently in college, because they are a little bit two different worlds, right? What is your take on the Belichick hire in North Carolina? Do you think it's a good fit, or do you think he should have stuck with trying to get back in the coaching ranks in the NFL?
I like it. I think what you see here is a man who still feels like he has something to give to the game.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, he's enjoyed many years of success in New England. The one thing he has done is he's built a good coaching team, or a good team of coaches to run the teams there. They've had great personnel. And of course, you have Tom Brady, who's just a game changer. But I don't know that I feel like he has anything to prove, like he can still win without or whatever. I think it's just a man who just wants to impart his knowledge on younger generations. Now, granted, like you said, with the NIL, that brings in some guys. You're going to have some millionaires on the team, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. A lot of egos.
Yeah, a lot of egos. But obviously in the NFL, they're used to dealing with that. And maybe he brings some of that ego management to this team and get these guys sort of motivated early to focus on football. But the biggest thing I see is the passion. Congratulations to him on getting back into coaching. I wish him the best of luck.
We shall see. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in Carolina, in Chapel Hill with Belichick. But definitely I will be watching. It definitely caught my attention. And speaking of catching attention, you know what time it is. It's game picks time. I got a 3-pack of picks this week. I'm really excited after a couple of weeks off, right? Overall for the year, I'm 14-7-3. So I've got a winning record, and I think I can win all 3 of these picks this week. I'm excited. And we're going to start in North Carolina. We just left there, and now we're coming right back. We turned the plane around, right? So we're going to head to North Carolina. We got the Dallas Cowboys at 5-8 coming into North Carolina to play the Panthers, who haven't been winning. They've only won 3 games all year. But the Panthers, the last month of the year, have been playing just as good as any team in the NFL. And this is one of the few games this year that the Panthers are actually favored. They are favored by 2.5. And I'm going to tell everybody out there, if you want extra lettuce on that sandwich, if you want that guap, you want that gouda, you want that dinero, that queso, roll with the Panthers, swallow the 2.5, because I think they're going to come into that game ready. I think they're hungry for a win. Dallas is going nowhere fast. They've been eliminated from playoff contention, and I don't think that the Cowboys are going to win this game. They might keep it close in the first half. Will it be a blowout? No, but I think Carolina is viable here, and I think they cover the spread easily, and I still think it's going to be somewhat of a low-scoring game. I'm going to roll with Carolina 23, Cowboys 16. Moving on. We are headed to Pennsylvania. We got a huge matchup as the Pittsburgh Steelers go into Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Some in-state rival action. These two teams don't get together often, right? But I do love the fact that, first of all, Russell Wilson and his development and his redemption story this year, I think that's the comeback player of the year, is Russell Wilson, for what he's been able to do in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, need I say more? He's only won 17 consecutive seasons with a winning record, right? It's about to be 18 consecutive years now. The Steelers are first place in the AFC North. They're 10-3. They are a 5-point dog going into this game. Despite the fact that the Eagles have been winning, I believe they've won 9 straight games. Philadelphia, not everything is all brotherly in that locker room with everything going on with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles are a quality football team. I love what Saquon Barkley has been doing this year. But on the other side of the equation, I do like the Steelers defensively with J.J. Watt, their defensive line up front. I don't think they're going to allow Barkley to go crazy and run wild in this game. I think this is going to be an old-school beat-em-up defensive battle. I do like the Eagles to win this game late, but I think the Steelers are going to cover this spread. I think 5 points is way too much. Take the Steelers with the points. I think the Eagles will end up getting it done late, probably by a field goal. I'm going Philadelphia 24, Steelers 20. I think the Eagles get it done, but they don't cover. And last but not least, we're going to head to Motown, to the Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. You got the Bills coming into town to play the Lions and Dan Campbell. Shout out to Detroit and Dan Campbell. I love what you guys are doing this year. The Lions are currently sitting at 12-1. They've had a phenomenal year. Jared Goff has been balling out. They got the two-headed monster in the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And then they got Amon St. Brown on the outside to stretch the field. So the Lions have an explosive offense. Buffalo has an explosive offense with Josh Allen. I like what he's doing with Shakir, stretching the field with him. I like what you're doing running the football as well. I think the Bills, they're a 2.5-point dog, right? I think they're going to be a little bit angry coming off that upset loss to the Rams at SoFi last week. And I think Buffalo still is one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. So who do I trust more at the quarterback position? When you got Josh Allen, who can not only get it done with his arm, but he can get it done with his legs, and he can run you over with the best of them, right? Totally different style of play than Jared Goff. Jared Goff can throw the football well. He's an in-the-pocket kind of quarterback. But if Buffalo can apply pressure, make Jared Goff uncomfortable, I think he's vulnerable to make mistakes. We clearly saw that about a month ago when he threw 5 picks in a Monday Night Football game against the Houston Texans, even though the Lions ended up winning that game. So I do like Buffalo here. Swallow the 2.5. I think they win it outright. I think it's going to be some points scored in this game. I like Buffalo here, 31. I like the Lions, 27. So Buffalo wins it outright, 31-27. Just to recap on the picks, my 3-pack of picks for week 14. Again, I like Carolina to beat Dallas and cover the 2.5, swallow the 2.5. I love the Steelers on the road at +5. I still think Philly wins it late, but the Steelers cover the 5. And I think the Bills come into Detroit and win it outright. So swallow the 2.5 and roll with the Buffalo Bills. With that being said, you already know what time it is. It's time to bring the pain. So Solomon, let it rain! Woo! Episode 50 is in the books. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Sports Hop Media, at Mack B, MACKB as in boy _. We appreciate the love. It's your boy Mack B. We out. Thanks for watching Sports Hop. For all the latest news on hip hop and sports, subscribe here and keep it locked. It's your boy Mack B.